Adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist?
And I'm
Chris. And today we have a show, probably a quicker show than usual. We will be discussing some very unique and interesting music. It is a metal of some kind. I will admit we don't know. I don't know how much you know. I have only really been introduced to them this week. And it took me a couple of tries to really like I knew of them for a while, but I never really listened. And it took me a couple of tries to get into them. And then once I did, I really got it. We are going to be talking about the ambient doom metal that is, well, it doesn't seem to have a middle ground. It either has diehard fanatics or people who just don't like it at all or don't understand it at all. We are talking about Sunn, or Sunn O for some of you people who have
the uninitiated.
The uninitiated, the undoctrinated. That is our show. We're going to be talking about Sunn. We're going to be discussing them the best that we can. We do have to give a couple of shout outs. We got a couple of new cultists to join our Why Does This Exist membership. We got a couple of people who sent us some things. We've got Muhammad, the loyal Muhammad, our humble servant Muhammad from across the way, from sharing some interesting things, an odd meme of female weebs giving anime recommendations, and it's a redo of Healer, and it's just some girl holding a duck. I don't understand any of this, but well, Muhammad, thank you very much. I don't get this at all. I'm not really an anime guy. Rob, I don't know if you understand what this is.
No,
Okay, that means no. All right. Well, thank you, Muhammad. And then we've also got this guy Jared over here who's just showing us this weird thing here. There's it's the biggest 5 subreddits for The Last of Us, and for some reason it's somebody's status or somebody's observation, and this individual Jared decided to share it with us. It's a little disturbing. For some reason there's nothing wrong with the first 3 of the communities for Reddit. We have the regular one, The Last of Us. We have the other Reddit for The Last of Us. I don't know if one's the show and one's the game. And then there's the other one that's specifically The Last of Us HBO series. So far, so good. Nothing so bad with that. And then there's LENSFW. That's 18 plus to join. And then the next one is The Last of Us Lewd Hub. And I don't know what that means, but that's also NSFW. All right, I lied. I know exactly what both of those things mean. That's horrible. These are the top 5. And also, the other thing that I would like to point out is NSFW has the 3rd most members. And I never played the game. I never watched the series. I'm just not caught up with it yet. I haven't gotten into it. Probably because so many people are raving about it that I don't want to watch it now with a high expectation. And then it just doesn't come close. That's kind of what happened with Game of Thrones. I tried to watch that a few times while everyone was like, "Oh, dude, you got to watch it." And I couldn't get past the 3rd to 5th episode. And I really hated it. And then I especially hated it even more when I found out that the whole show goes by and there's pretty much no dragons, but they keep talking about how the dragons are on their way, and the dragons never show
They
up.
do in the later
So
seasons.
yeah, but who the hell wants to
Well,
wait that long? So I quit. I quit Game of Thrones. I can't do that one. But The Last of Us, I really wanted to play the game first. I don't have a PS5 yet, and now they've announced the PS6, and we'll probably get that in another year. So why am I even going to bother with a PS5? Plus, we got the Switch 2 that might be coming in December. So I mean, I've got my work coming out cut out for me, and I still enjoy my Nintendo Switch normal. So I don't. So there's really no reason for me to buy a console. So maybe I'll just watch The Last of Us, like, I don't know, in like 10 years when everyone forgot about it. But yeah, why is Ellie NSFW?
Isn't she a child?
Even a server? That's what I was gonna say. I don't know the story, but isn't she a very young girl who was not 18?
Well, I mean, fucking, that's the internet for you. They're fucking weird.
I don't even know. Or like, is this started by like people where the age of consent is like 9? I don't get it. It's why would you do that? I'm not in this group to find out what it's about, but I can already imagine what's going on there, and I don't even want to know what's going on in The Last of Us Lewd Hub. Jared, why do you do this to us? Thank you for supporting the show. We greatly appreciate it. And Mohammed, keep sending all these wacky images too. I don't really understand the anime meme, but you know what? If you got a kick out of it, then I guess I did too, because this is just like, just keep it coming, people. You see how the cult is growing, and there's a few ways that the cult can grow. You can keep doing things like that. You can find us on social media. You can find us on the Facebook at Why Does This Exist? Why Does This Exist? You can also find us on YouTube. That's YouTube. And you just find Why Does This Exist with a question mark. That's us. You find the show. We have a bunch of previous clips and episodes. We haven't really updated anything new in a long time. I've echoed this over the past few months. I'm kind of an idiot and I don't really upload it, but also YouTube doesn't like quality content, and so maybe I'll have to find some cat videos to throw over it to trick everybody, and they'll think, oh, it's just a stupid cat video. I'm not going to learn anything. No one's going to school me on reality.
I think YouTube is starting to go,
and they'll
YouTube
be dead wrong.
to go towards like the shorts, just like friggin' like that are like a rip off of like TikTok videos, basically. That's why.
Yeah, well, that's been going on too. So even that, it makes me hate that platform even more. Plus, it screws over the content creators, and they don't make any money. Speaking of ways to make money, Patreon.com why does this exist? That's how we can make money. You can join our Discord server by going to the Patreon and giving us as little as $1 or as much as you want. And we need to do. I got to do this week, but we will be moving over the content from why does this exist show.com, because, well, honestly, the traffic isn't really that high. We don't really throw up too many articles often enough to justify keeping the site. So we're just going to move everything over to the Patreon so that you can get everything in one place. And, you know, if you want to give us any money, that's fantastic. If you don't, then that's okay. We'll probably have some exclusive articles that just go behind the paywall, because we're jerks and we're jackals and we're heathens and we're just bad people. But you're going to do it anyway. So there. Now that I've embarrassed myself and destroyed all credibility of this show, you are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Tell everybody about Sunn, because you know a little bit more about them than I do, and this was kind of your idea. It's basically the word Sunn and a logo, and the eye in the logo. The logo kind of looks like I want to say the not NBC. What's the other one?
CBS.
The CBS.
It's not an eye,
looks
though.
like
It's
the CBS logo.
That's.
I know it's supposed to be the sun, but it kind of reminds me of the CBS logo with like two parentheses coming off of it.
So basically, Sunn, or Sunn O for people who don't know, it's actually not Sunn O. It looks like an O, but it's actually supposed to be like the sun, because it's like an O with 3 parentheses. So it's supposed to be like the sun and like the rays.
They're also named after the Sun amplifier,
and they use the same logo. So it's basically it's the same. Yeah. So it was a project started by Stephen O'Malley and Greg Anderson, who are both from.
Two fine young Irish boys from
Yes.
Seattle.
And so Sun is kind of a hard genre to describe. It's kind of like doom slash drone slash dark ambient. There's elements of black metal and noise in there. It's just a very like interesting mix. And basically their songs like the average song length for a Sun song is about like 20 minutes or so, 10 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's very little percussion in the way of percussion or rhythm. It's more just very like slow ambient droning sound. They use a lot of like effects and reverb and all that stuff to kind of build this huge dark like wall of music almost. um and I first heard about Sun when I was back in college, because I was like starting to get into more of the dark ambient and kind of like drone like a lot. I did actually a couple of projects myself in college that were like dark ambient esque slash black metal. Um, and so basically the whole like point of drone and ambient music. It's not like it's very subtle changes. It's like really it's music that you really have to listen to, like very like you can't just like casually listen to it. It's like an active listening kind of style of music because the changes are so subtle that if like you're just like not paying attention, you won't like actually realize what's happening, kind of thing. And I also like.
That's exactly why I had trouble
Yeah.
listening to them the first couple of times because I I was the first time that I checked them out was about a week and a half ago, and I was working, so I had it on during the day on like a Monday, which is a particularly busy day for
Mhm.
most people, including myself. So I just put it on in the background while I was doing my regular chore I guess. And I didn't notice any of the changes at all. I just was like I told the missus because she's off on Mondays, and I was just like I really hate this thing. I don't know, like I don't like they have a really big cult following, but I hate this. I like it's just total noise. I can't stand it. There's nothing different about it. And so a few days later, I gave it another listen because I couldn't sleep, and I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna sit out here on the couch, and I'm gonna listen to like either a YouTube clip or a podcast or something to try to help me go to sleep. So maybe I'll put
Yeah.
this thing on, and I put on Sun, and I started noticing all of the subtle changes because it was just me, darkness, and the music, and me trying to sleep, my eyes closed, and just really picking it. I was really just lending myself only to my oral
Mhm.
senses, not to be confused with my oral senses, which that's let's not go there. But I I really started to get into it, and I was sitting and like I felt calm and I felt unnerved at the
Yes.
same time. Like there was that feeling where nothing's happening, but you think that something could be
Yeah.
chasing you.
It's
And then I really noticed the
yeah.
changes and how very subtle they are
Yes.
because of how drawn out
Yeah.
everything is. And now I'm a fan. Now I'm a fan of them. I've been listening to them for a few days. Also, a very good band to listen to when you're just like unwinding after a long day and you're
Yeah.
taking a bath. Really great band to just do
Or get
nothing
blazed
to.
and listen to.
Well, there's
Yeah.
that too. That's probably what it's
Yes.
designed
Well,
for.
I would say definitely because it's like it's
I'm
one of those things where you have to kind of get lost in the music. And actually, So when listening to Sunn O, I think the best thing to do is honestly find like surround sound headphones or like really good studio quality headphones and just like turn all the
Yes.
lights off and like, don't look at anything, kind of close your eyes and kind of just like fall into the music, Um
If you're gonna put on any light, just
yeah.
light a candle, one lone
Yeah.
candle in your home,
I actually
but don't fall asleep. That's
I
a
went
bad
to
idea.
back in college, I had to do like extra like it was like extra work outside of school, basically like extra study, and like I was a music major, so I got to like go do like cool music stuff as extra study. And one of the things that I did was there was a dark ambient project in this venue in Brooklyn that was basically like I think it was like an old bank or something. So it was like just like this like big, huge like marble stone room with these giant columns and like it was just like a stone room. And it was like an audio visual project where like it was like this dark ambient music and like this projection on this like screen that was just like colors and like swirling and stuff like that. It wasn't like anything like in particular. It was just like kind of like like almost like a laser light show or something.
I know the area that you're
It was in
talking about, but I
Williamsburg. I don't
don't
know what
remember
it
the
was.
name. Yes, I don't remember the
Yeah.
name of the place, but I know what you're talking.
But
No, it's not. No, it's not
it was
Europa.
not, yeah,
No,
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 no.
no,
It
it's not
wasn't like a
Europa.
regular venue that you
It's
would
a
go
different
to. And I
place.
was like, there wasn't a lot of people there. It was like me and there was a few other people there. And it was kind of like an all day thing where you could just like walk in and out. And it was like set up that way. It was like kind of like an exhibit almost. And
They do things like that on Governor's Island
it was, yeah,
sometimes.
it was cool because it was like you go in and you just sit down and the room is like completely dark except for this screen and like the music is just kind of like reverberating off of all the walls. And it's crazy because like the longer you sit, the more things you hear. It's like, and that's like kind of how you have to listen to Sunn O too, is you have to kind of like just like sit there and listen to it. And like all of a sudden you'll start noticing stuff you didn't notice before. There's like little things in the background and under, and it's like, it's so subtle. And that's where like the listening experience of any kind of ambient
Yes,
or like noise rock or drone comes from, is just like listening for those subtle changes, and
yes. It's impressive with how many
yes.
layers
Yeah.
they use
Yeah.
on a track.
Um,
I feel like I pity the sound engineer.
and just from like my own like writing drone and dark ambient music, it's actually like a really fun genre to write in because you could really do like anything. Like you could like have you basically like the way I would write it is I would come up with like a bottom riff, like something that's like like that would be like just like the bass, and it would be like the key, like the key signature and stuff of like the whole song. And like I would just build off of that and slowly add layers and then like kind of like bring stuff in with like volume faders and like and panning and making it like and like making automation so it like moved up and down and like almost like the piece of itself was alive, and it's like breathing and like and it's a very interesting like genre of music to write music for. um I've never actually seen Sunn live. I would love to see them live, but apparently their shows are incredibly, incredibly loud. They play an extremely loud volume, and like I said, they use so much distortion and reverberation that it's like just like this overwhelming wall of music. So that'd be like one of those shows where I definitely bring earplugs because I don't like I'd probably be like deaf by the end of it otherwise.
You would
Um,
most likely. I believe we were trying to get a friend to come on the show tonight who I believe has experienced Sun
yeah,
in Canada. Um, but he is seeing Gorod
yeah,
tonight, so he gets a pass. I hope the show is good. I'm sure it is good.
yeah.
Gorod is good, but alas, Sun is just their live show is supposed to be one of the most
It's an
incredible things.
experience. It's
So yes, it is
they
indeed an
dress like
experience. They
druids.
wear
Yeah.
robes. Yes, they wear robes
They
and
use fog machines
they
and crazy lights and
yeah.
the sound is just blaring, and it's really, again, something that you want to get blazed to or do psychedelics and go to, because you will see crazy. It'll bring you to a different dimension, you know. Um
Oh yeah.
and so also, like, they're notorious for their like incredibly long songs, like, and there was always a joke that was going around where it was like, oh, you're late for the grindcore show, you missed the first five bands, or you're 15 minutes late for grindcore show, you missed the first five bands. 15 minutes late for Sunn O show, they're still on the first note of the first song. Like, and
Yeah.
it's kind of true, because, like, again, there's most of their songs are an average of 10 to 15 minutes, or 10 to 20 minutes rather.
About.
And there's not a lot, like, some songs they do have vocals. It's not often a lot of times it's like a spoken word track that's over the music, rather than like someone actually singing in the traditional sense. um so it's like different. It's very avant-garde. That's like, if anything, it's
That could
experimental
be
and
the best way to
avant-garde. And
describe it.
there's not like, it's not for the average music listener, I think, really. Like, I think most people, like, would be like, have your initial reaction that, like, they hate it, like, it's too long, it doesn't make any sense, it's just noise. I think a lot of people would have that reaction. It's really, you have to kind of have like that trained ear and like really listen to it to actually kind of appreciate it. Uh,
Yes, it's something that you have to
yes.
sit with. You can't you can't, and like we said before, you can't be
Yes.
busy.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you could,
You
like, play while you're at the gym or working or something like that, because you can't pay attention to it, and then it really just sounds like noise. You really have to pay close attention to it to hear, what's actually happening. Um so Sun's had uh 10 albums. They haven't released one since 2019. Um so, it's I don't they actually released two in 2019, and there hasn't been one since then. Um so it would be interesting for them to put out an album now. I Again, it's a cult following, so it's not like there's, like, a huge demand for it, but I'm sure, like, people would still buy it. Um
Oh yeah, I'm sure I feel like they're one of these bands that where it's almost like a Tool reaction
yes.
where they'll do nothing for a long time and then one day they'll just come out with something completely unannounced, and or like they'll just announce a tour out of nowhere and every date will sell out. I feel like Sun is one of those bands that could probably do something
Yes.
like that just because of how rabid their fan base
Yeah.
is.
Um So I think we should talk about a little bit the fact that they're named after Sunn amplifiers, which is like the weirdest thing ever. Because, like, it's like, what? How? Why would they, like, just do that? It's
Yes.
hilarious. And I believe they actually use Sunn amplifiers, so it's not like they're just, like, being jackasses and stealing some.
No, I think they do. Well, I they probably use old
Yes.
ones because Fender bought Sun in 1985, and then they shut down Sun in 2002, which was around the time
Hmm.
when Sun came out with their first couple of albums. On their second album,
Yes,
Flight
they
of the
were
Behemoth.
initially formed in 1998, so they
They
were out for a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. So they still had some time to spend with the Sun amps, and I I want to like. I mean, I would say I wonder how they got around copyright, but like maybe they like bought a stake in the amp
I
company.
mean,
I
I
don't
think
know, or
it was
maybe
because it was,
like
at the time,
I
it was
don't
kind of a
know.
small amp company, so, like, maybe they were, like, didn't care, maybe they knew the guys, you know? Uh,
Maybe. I mean, even though Fender owned Sun at the time, maybe like whoever was in charge, maybe that could have
yeah.
been the
I mean,
case. Maybe they knew them.
Sun, I think, was initially founded in Oregon. It was, near Portland, so, they're not far from Seattle. Um So it
No.
could have been just people that they had known, that they were like, "Hey, can we use the band in the logo or the name in the logo for our band because we want to use your amplifiers?" And they might have been just like, "Oh, sure."
Could be. I mean, it could have just been the Sun music equipment store for the longest time, and maybe they just like would go hang out there a lot or
Yeah.
something like that. Like maybe it was just a like more of a mom and pop shop than anything, and they just happened to be owned
Yeah,
by
I mean,
Fender.
so Stephen O'Malley and Greg Anderson also were in numerous bands before Sun. They were in a number of doom metal bands and other experimental bands, death metal, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Both of them. So, I mean, they were playing music well before Sun became a project. Um, and I believe both of them still do play in some of their other bands. Not as often, I think. It's more, but they both do a lot of different projects. So it's,
Yeah, Sun is not their only
yeah,
thing, but it is their it's probably their most beloved creation and their
yeah,
prized possession.
yeah. So it's they're a pretty good. Like I said, they're pretty
And
good. Not for everybody. Uh, I don't know. They're I don't, they're just you just have to listen to them. We're not going to play one of their songs tonight because otherwise we'd be here for like an extra half hour or 45 minutes at least. Um
yeah, well, Greg Anderson does play in Goat Snake, which is
oh
freaking
yeah,
awesome. If you
they're a
haven't
stoner
listened to
doom
them,
band. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
they're
Actually,
just they're
I,
they're
I
really
think
good.
Doom is kind of like the stepping stone into ambient music. Like it's like, it's the gateway drug of ambient because Doom is kind of like
I
slow and
mean,
very, like crunchy and like a lot of like big noise and stuff like that. And for me personally, Doom was like kind of my foray into ambient because when at the time I was in a class, an electronic and computer music class, and I was talking with my professor about something, and I had mentioned that, like, oh, I've been listening to like a lot of like really like heavy doom metal lately. That's like was like my thing at the time. And he's like, "Oh, well, do you listen to like any like ambient music or any like noise rock or drone?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Here," and he's like started like giving me all this like music to listen to, and like I really got into it because it was like uh like something that I've never heard before, and it was like just like, and I like that kind of like where you could just kind of lose yourself and like like let your brain like form images based off the music.
yes.
I remember he had gave me an album. It wasn't a Sun album, but it was it was like a collaboration by a bunch of like Greek black metal bands. Um, and basically it was a dark ambient project, and they went to this like ancient church that was like from like like the before the Middle Ages, like the like the 900s or something, the 800s, you know, AD.
I didn't know that those were you could still
Well, in
find them.
Greece, yeah. And
Yeah.
like so basically they recorded this whole album in the church and used the natural like reverb
Oh,
from like the stone
that's
walls of the
cool.
church, and it was just a crazy, it blew my mind. It was like how awesome it was, and it really like got me into like doing like kind of experimental stuff like that, like using like crazy reverb and listening for stuff like that. It's just
Yeah.
so I like Sun was definitely like a huge like influence on my like like musical tastes at the time. It was like, oh, this is like cool, this I like this, and I liked doing it myself. I like making that kind of music.
That part is always fun when you don't need additional, but when you don't really need a whole lot of
Yeah,
additional people.
well, that's the great thing about it too, is you don't need a drummer really for drone or ambient music, because it's like it's very slow and often arrhythmic. um it's again, it's all about the subtle changes and like the how the music flows. It's hard to explain. Like I said, it's like almost like a living thing. Like it's almost like the song is breathing, and that's where the rhythm comes from. You know, um,
Mhm. I mean, to best explain like just the drone kind of stuff, it's really like if you just took a Doom, if you took any Doom song and you like slowed that down
Yeah.
exponentially, and you just were left with like, if you turn the 4 hour song into, if you turn the 4 minute song into a 4 hour song,
Yeah.
essentially, that's what
Yeah.
you would get.
I remember around this time too, we like he was like showing me all kinds of crazy experimental and the class in general, all kinds of
Do you remember the name? Do you remember the name of the Greek group?
I don't remember the name of it, but I know the name of actually I could probably look it up. Hold on. Because I know the name of the album. Uh
Okay. Also, Stone Walls of the Church sounds like a really great
that does
album
sound
title.
like let me see if I can find it.
Stone Walls of anything sounds pretty cool. Um, Greg Anderson and Stephen O'Malley also founded Southern Lord
Yes.
Records, which is the record label that
Yeah.
Sunn O is on. Well, that Sun is on, excuse me. Which, of course, it would be on their label. But Southern Lord is just essentially the it's the go-to doom metal record label in the world, basically. If you want to get a lot of like if you want to get like a lot of like older sounding doom bands and a lot of like old school hardcore punk type bands, then that's really the
Yeah.
place for you. Is Southern Lord. All, every be- all the best doom albums come out on that label because it's such a DIY shop. And I was listening to this album. I mean, not album. I was listening to this interview with
Mhm.
Stephen O'Malley a couple of days ago from probably a couple of years ago. It was for some European publication, and he was talking about how a lot of Sun and just Southern Lord, it really just all went hand in hand because they were all just because him and Greg were just die-hard hardcore punk bands, and like they were, and like all those
Mhm.
bands were all DIY, and like they didn't let anything stop them. So the two of them had that mentality, and they did the
Yeah.
same thing. So that's essentially what started this whole love for everything. Because even with like Son, there wasn't really doing what anything like that in
Yeah.
1998. So it was just so vastly different that anybody that wanted something different, that was the place for
Yeah.
them. And Seattle just being such a rich city for um just music in general, whether or not you like grunge or anything that came out of Seattle, there's a lot of music that's come out
Yeah.
of that town, and it just so I'm sure that I'm sure that they had a big music scene and possibly still do. I don't really know that area, so I can't vouch for it, but I'm sure they have a really interesting music scene. And if you've ever been there, there is, because it's so close to Portland, Oregon. There you get some of the stray Portland vibes that kind of latch on to bits of Seattle. And also there's like just a lot of interesting sculptures with like all the tech community that's in there as well.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting things going on there. And I I'm sure that there's a ton of really interesting doom bands that have cropped up because of the influence of Sun.
Okay, I found it finally. Hold on. I found the name of the
Good. Now
album.
I can stop
Yeah,
stalling.
it took me a freaking million years. Why is this not coming up now?
And it's gone. Just like my 401k.
Well, I can't find it on like on fucking. Let me see if I can find it on Spotify because it's not coming up when I Google it.
Oh no. So maybe it's just lost
Well,
to
I have
time.
the album, so it's not like it's lost. It's just not on anything that you can listen to. So,
Well, what's the name of the album for those who might be
well, if
able
you
to
can
find
find it, it's
this?
called. Hold on. Now I lost it again. Damn it!
Oh no.
Why is this? Oh, I'm in the wrong. Am I in the wrong thing? Hold on one second. Oh, what the hell? Now I lost it again. Oh, well,
Oh
botch.
God,
Now
this
it's
is
gone
elusive.
forever.
Well, if we can find it, we'll mention it on a future episode, and if we can find it on this episode, well, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sun is arguably the most interesting band that's come out in probably the last 20 to 30 years, just because of how bizarre Throne in general is, and how you need to undergo, like how it's not music, it's an
Yeah.
experience. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yes.
It's just the most interesting audio experience that you can ever have is Sun.
Yeah. It is definitely an experience. Um and it's, they're a great band. It's you just have to kind of listen to them, you gotta, and you have to sit down and listen to them. You can't just like listen to them in passing. And if you're into that kind of experimental music, you definitely will get a kick out of them, because they're quite a fun band. um
Yes.
well, not fun.
To go back a little bit,
Well,
sorry,
I was gonna
say
say
what you
not
were
fun in
saying.
like the traditional sense. It's fun in like, oh, let me get lost in my head right now kind of sense.
Yes. But just to go back a little bit, and I guess we'll wrap it up shortly, just to finish a little bit more of the history of the Sun Amplifier Company. It was well, the this band, the Kingsmen, who like we said, were based in Portland, Oregon. These are like this is essentially how it gets founded. Is these folks who did the song Louie Louie, right? They they take off. The Kingsmen take off. They do a nationwide tour, and at the time, this is like the early '60s, so they hadn't really played like big venues. It was really just you know high schools and just dances and things like that, and they couldn't play, and they only had like smaller, probably like Fender amplifiers or something like that they were using. Not the Fender amplifiers aren't good; they're great, but they only had like smaller, probably 15-watt amps that they were just playing in like the schools and things, and like the acoustics could carry either way. Um, and they could not play these larger areas. They couldn't play arenas. They couldn't play concert halls. They couldn't play
Hmm.
festivals, and their amps just were not powerful enough to do what they needed it to do to put out for the tour. So Norm Sundholm, the bass player, he he spoke with his brother Conrad, and he was like, "Dude, my bass amp is just not kick. I can't do anything with this. I can't hear it. Nobody can hear me. The people in the back don't even know that there's even music happening. It's just not great. Like, can you help me?" So Conrad and Norm starts getting things together, and then they create this like high-powered concert bass amplifier, which is essentially the early Sun
Hmm.
amplifier, and it's a tube design um, by this fellow named David Hafler, and the Dynaco Hi-Fi Company were the preamps that powered these babies, and they just kind of combined these items to make these high-powered super bass amplifiers. Were like it eventually blew up because they were using they like, no pun intended, but it blew up. Like, people were like, "Oh crap, I need these amps, I
Yeah.
need the Sun amps, I need, like, these are the most powerful amps, I need this, like, I gotta go on tour, I'm getting a Sun amp." So it came out of
Yeah.
necessity, and they used to be the they used to build all these amps out of the family garage, and then people had just wanted them so badly that they had to actually get like a
Yeah.
real state, like they had to get like a
Yeah.
real space, and and then they just created the Sun Musical Equipment Company, and there you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, then Fender bought them in 1985, and then they kept it going for 20-ish
Yeah.
years. Shut him down in 2002, and we have Sun, who came around in
Yep.
'98. I guess must have been friends with the Sunn Homes, and or just got permission
Yeah.
somehow and
Maybe they did. Maybe they
used
didn't
the
get
amp
permission. They just didn't
and
give a
used
shit,
this.
and it doesn't matter now because Sun is defunct, like the amplifier company.
Maybe. Yeah. So I don't know, but it's a very, very interesting it's just a very interesting story. And the parentheses that Sun the band added was well they have a couple, they have like one or two less parentheses than the original logo, which maybe that's by design or maybe it just doesn't matter. But it's a fitting
Mhm.
beginning and an equally fitting end for this amplifier. It's a fitting beginning for the band, and it's a fitting end for the amplifier company, that it will live on as a band that specifically makes the lo-fi bass heavy music that the Sunn Amplifier Company was initially founded to
Yes.
create. But it's an experience, so if Sunn ever shows up in your area again and they pop up in your orbit, then get a ticket, and for God's sakes, be safe with whatever you're doing, but have a wonderful experience with whatever you may or may not choose to put into your body for
Mhm.
that event. But have
Yes. And
fun.
while you're at it, while you're listening to Sun O, I found the name of the band.
Stay
I found the name of
hydrated.
the album and the band. The band is
Oh,
called
goody.
Chthonian Music, and the album is RMEDL, like line K11. So that's the name of the other crazy ass like friggin' dark ambient project that is like very
All
similar
right.
and that they did in like an ancient church in Greece.
Cool. Well, on that note, thank you all for checking out this show. Thank you for listening to Sun. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for sharing all these weird things on social media. Thank you for joining the Patreon. Thank you for all these things and more. We appreciate each and every one of you. We hope you learned something today, and we also, well, we hope you check out
Yeah.
Sun. Like we said, we would like to play some tunes for you, but then we'd be here for at least 2 hours, and we'd maybe get through
Yeah.
one song. So let's not and say we did. Thank each and every one of you for coming on the show and listening. Thank you for all your support and everything, and we really appreciate it. But this has been Why Does This Exist?
And
I have
I've
been
been
Chris,
Rob.
and remember,
Good
question
night,
everything.
everybody.